we'll skip right over to center of foot next. But I think, and I guess I'm kind of asking, is like that, is that the general consensus that most of you guys and what you think most students say, it's either too large of a jump, like Parliamentarian Ray's case, where it's like you're expected to do more, or does it feel like the more complaints you have is that you're expected to do so much less that it's not even it doesn't even add up to what you would be doing on a regular basis? Like you said, 16 minutes, is that really equal to the amount of work you do in a 3.5 hour lecture? So would you guys say that, and I guess you can kind of discuss it, think about that, but is it so much higher, you're expected to do so much more, or is it now, do you even feel like you're getting the same amount of education as you were whenever you were offline, whenever you're on campus?
I
So like,
definitely, I
no, you go ahead.
definitely, I definitely feel like I'm missing out on things I could be learning, but the assignments have been postponed and have kind of been changed in terms of my classes to where I don't need to know as much, which is one hand good for me to, you know, do it, but then the other hand bad because I'm not learning as much as I could as if I was in class because I could ask questions immediately and all that. And now I'd have to email, and then when you put an extra step, why would I do that anyways? And also, it's another thing of if someone has one screen and they have all these things where they used to get a paper copy in class or something like that. Now, like for me, it's easy because I have multiple screens. I have a powerful enough PC. I got the internet, all hooked up, stuff like that. And so for me, it's easier. But if someone only had a small laptop or not even that, just had an iPad or a phone or something like that, I couldn't even see myself doing this work with just that. If they if they were having to rely so much on the computers at school, to them it's so much of a handicap that I couldn't see how I'd even do any of the work at home. So I think that's why there's a
Okay.
polarizing thing of so good that it's fine, or this is horrible, there's no way I can do any work. So yeah.
Okay. So yeah, no, that's really important. That was kind of just my question, is like, and think about that. I think it's something to think about if you guys do get to meet with your deans and faculty. I think that's probably the biggest question, is like, which one is the biggest polarization? Is it so far one side or so far the other? But anyways, I didn't mean to skip over or talk over, but Senator Foote, it is your turn. You have the floor, sir.
Awesome. So I've had both sides of the equation. In some of my classes, one of my class was an online class, and I was taking 2 classes from the same professor, and he already had all of the lecture stuff already pre-digitized because he has 2 sections of it, one that's in person and one that's online. So shifting it from, watching him read over the PowerPoint in class and then watch the video in class and write on a piece of paper in class, we just pushed it to Canvas, which was really easy. I've had 0 issues with that because I'm still doing exactly the same thing that I was doing. In some of my other classes, it's the same one that Gus was talking about with the group project. There was a big, there's been a whole mess, and the teacher, like most of the students, have been trying to contact the teacher and email and use text as prescribed in the syllabus, and we were getting no response via email, and the texts were being read because with the new Android messages, you can see who's reading your text. So she was reading all the text, but not responding to any of them. And it was this big mess. And so finally, one of my group members got really mad and was about to go to the dean. And then she started responding to our messages. We have a Zoom meeting with her for the first time since spring break tomorrow. So I'll see how that goes. But it's been almost a lack of any in-class learning and nothing supplementing that on Canvas or otherwise. So it basically just went from, here's some guiding steps for this project to, all right, it's due at this time, you can turn it in. And that's not really a good learning based on how it used to be in the class, where we could, pay attention in class and understand what was going on. Now we can't do that because we're not even hosting a Zoom class or doing any Q&A up until tomorrow. I guess we'll see how that goes. If that's going to be a regular thing, that might solve a lot of issues. And just the general vibe from almost everyone that I've spoken to in that class is that they feel like now they're not learning anything, and that's not okay. But we're still working on solving that with the professor. And I was hesitant to, email the dean or, department chair or anything until after tomorrow, when we have the Zoom meeting with the professor and we can find out what's going on from her perspective. But other than that, I haven't had any huge issues other than that one class. So
If I may, JT, why don't you get with me and Senator Bowder? That way we can all go. Your Souls College of Physics, correct?
yes.
Yeah. So why don't you get with me and Senator Bowder? That way we can all go to Dr. Rainwater, the chair, and if that's not resolved, then we'll go to Dean Beatty and just get all this taken care of.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator. That was really, really good. So moving on to freshman senators, and after freshman senators, it'll be University Pines. We'll start with Senator Asbury, and then we'll move over and up on my screen actually to Senator Reed. So Senator Asbury.
Hey y'all. No, I'm right here. I was gonna say, sorry if you can't hear me that well. My computer says my internet connection is a little bit shaky. Well, anyways, I just wanted to kind of reiterate a point that Rhett just made in the chat. I feel like most of my classes, the transition hasn't been like too difficult, but again, like I'm a freshman, I'm pretty basic courses for the most part. And so, the material isn't something that it's impossible to learn online with a little bit of instruction. And so, I mean, for most of my classes, like there might be like hiccups, but it's nothing major. I don't feel like I'm getting like a significantly worse learning experience or anything. Just I try to be like understanding in all of this too, knowing that it's pretty difficult to put a class together like that. I haven't gotten as much feedback from my constituents as I did last week. I think a lot of what they were worried about was like the payments, the refunds, stuff like that. And once that question was answered, I did get a few questions about pass-fail, but now that that email is out, I don't think that it'll be as much of an issue. That email answered a lot of questions. And so yeah, that's really all I had to say. I've already spoken to a couple of e-board members about this, but I was considering something to where I know that a lot of students on campus, I mean, as pretty much everybody in America might be able to relate to, the economic situation for everybody isn't ideal. And I was wondering if there's something we could do with our funds that we have right now to in some way benefit some of the students on campus that might be hurt the most by this. And one of those groups of students, I think, might be like the international students who might be feeling the brunt of this whole crisis the worst. And I was wondering if you guys had any ideas or any brainstorming thoughts surrounding that. But other than that, that's really all I have to say.
So, well, yeah, no, Senator or Parliamentary, just give me one. I think it'd be a really big question, Senator Asbury, for Advisor Neves, because he has a lot of knowledge as to how those funds are allocated. It is something to consider. I hadn't thought of that. I had thought of the thought that we do have a certain amount of funding, and because we're on campus, the rule set on that funding is that if it's not used, it can't be used for anything else, as far as I know. I'll let Parliamentarian Ray give his thoughts on it, but I think Advisor Neves probably has a lot of thoughts on, or it probably give you the best insight on that. So actually, Advisor Nees, can you elaborate on that? If you have anything you can elaborate on that.
So I stepped away briefly, real quick, and so if I caught the end of that correctly, it was, yeah, I see some smiles. The about funds not being used and what happens to them. Is that correct?
So what Senator Asbury was saying is that if we do have a certain amount of funds that aren't being used, or because we're not on campus can't be used for anything else, can we use those funds and allocate them or use them to help benefit students? And he said, if there is a group of students that are in his thoughts, that maybe the international students would be one that could or would require more and the most assistance.
Yeah, so the university has put together an emergency fund for students. And I know we've already had several donors contribute some funds to that. And students that are in need of financial assistance, they can submit a request. That information is posted online as well, and they can submit a request, and the committee will review that information and then determine how much funds can be allocated for that. We've got to be careful when it comes to student fee money. I don't think that can necessarily be done the same way because all students have paid a set fee and it goes into that. And so if we were to funnel that directly to one student or to multiple students, there could be some possible issues or concerns there. Now, that doesn't mean we can't be a little bit more creative and maybe do an event and where participants, get a bag of food or you name it, or school supplies, whatever the assistants may need. And so I think it'd be a little bit better to figure out what the need is and determine if there's already assistance being provided already and funnel them into that direction before we duplicate efforts. But I do know the university's already had several requests and is already reviewing those requests on how we can assist those students that are in need. I know from a food perspective, the food pantry is still open for appointments. And so we put together, as of last week, we had about 10 students that took advantage of it. And we haven't had any this week, but if we do get contacted, we've already got a bag of food ready to give them. And the police department on campus is able to give them that food if needed. And so we haven't had any outreach with that. But if you hear of someone that is in need of food, tell them to contact us at the pantry and we'll take care of them. So I know that there's multiple things that are being done. I know the concern is that the money is not going to get used. But I promise you that, when things return back to normal, we will make sure that the funds is used for student government in one way or another.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, and is that all, Senator Asbury?
Yes, that's all.
Okay, awesome. So moving to Senator Reed.
All right, kind of how I put it in the chat and to kind of like affirm what Joel said, the transition's been easier for me because, the coursework, a lot of times it's a textbook followed by a supplemental lecture. And I've had one class where I have a Zoom meeting. That's like it's a 3-hour Zoom meeting. So it's kind of like in the place of a lab. So that's been kind of a hard transition, but a lot of the classes have been a smooth transition. And then also a lot of them had online preparation already because they were online classes as well. So some professors have just made the switch over to like an online platform because they've had the resources there. And I'm sure that's been the same for lots of my constituents. There has been something I have been working on as far as I've sent an email to housing because I had to come in contact with an RA in order to get my room unlocked. So I kind of got within a close distance. I tried to stay 6 feet away. And I know that I'm not the only student that's had to come in contact with RAs, to get the room unlocked or to turn in paperwork or to, change their keys to get in. So I sent an email in regards to seeing if there was a way that they could let students know at different housing facilities if there have been staff members at that housing facility that have tested positive. And I sent an email saying you don't even have to say names, but it would be nice for me because I had to get kind of close to know, so that way I can know whether or not I need to self-quarantine. And they sent an email back saying that they have a system implemented where you can, get all of your stuff out of your room without any interaction with the RAs. I said, that's great. I didn't say specifically that I'd had an interaction, but I know from experience, I'm probably not the only student moving out that's had to get close to the RAs. And I know that the RAs have probably had to deal with lots of students. So that's one thing that I emailed housing about, just to see if there's a way that, hey, if a staff member at that facility gets tested positive, there's probably a need to let some students know, just so they can make efforts. If they have been around an RA there, they can make efforts to, isolate themselves to make sure they protect their families. That's pretty much all I've done, and it was mainly because it was a concern I had. And upon sending an email, I thought, this is probably also a concern that other constituents have, because a lot of freshmen live in dormitories, and, a lot of them might have come in contact with their RAs over the past few weeks, like me. So I'll probably send another email just to see if they will inform students if there have been cases. And I don't know how the rules work with that, or if you can, but that's something I would kind of like to see them do, if that happens. That's it.
Awesome. Like you said, Jordan, and I've had a similar experience. I had to go back on campus just the other day after being off for the 2 weeks, or after the extended break. I went back. It seems like that it might be a little bit different because experience I had was a little bit different. So I think that is something that's important, that you reached out to them, and I hope that that's not the case. But you had some really good thoughts on making sure that it is the case, and that it keeps to be the case if not taking necessary precautions. So moving on then to the last constituency, University Pines. I guess we'll start with Senator Roberts, and then we'll end with Senator Ramirez.
Can you all hear me just in case? Okay, perfect. Okay, so I just want to touch back on what you said earlier about sending advising messages. I looked through our rules and the RHA rules, and there's nothing that prevents me doing that as in the SJA senator capacity and housing committee. So I guess that is something that we can do and we could work on. So I'll talk with Mineko, and then of course with if anyone else here has any problems that they've had with housing that I might not hear, or that Mineko might not hear, or even the other RHA people I talk to, if they haven't heard anything, I'm all ears. So if you want to send me an email, I'll type it down below here in a second. You can, or somehow get in contact with me. As far as University Pines, still haven't really heard much. I went back a few days ago. It looked like a ghost town. There was really no one there. My roommate has moved out, I guess, I'm assuming, because I haven't seen any cars. A lot of people have moved out as well. So I guess that's good that everyone's kind of leaving. But one problem that everyone is facing, that I'm sure Mineko will talk on a little more about, is that there was a news article that was floating around that had been released about us being forced to kind of pressure to move out, but being forced to pay for it. I'm sure that they're still working on it. I wanted to know if there's anything that we can do as a housing committee to send a letter, but I didn't know if sending a letter might be appropriate, because that might just be, putting more fuel to the fire that's already going on between University of Texas at Tyler and CLV, the parent company of University Pines. So that's something I just had a question about.
So
I
think
So can I chime in on that?
Yeah.
So I think the best course of action for that one is to reach out to Vice President Tolliver. And I know that they are working alongside both organizations to have a decision made in the coming days. And so ONO will be able to potentially provide an update on that and kind of hopefully a timeline on when they hope to have an agreement in place that is going to help. And so I can't speak on behalf that the university is going to do everything they can to help the students as best as they can. And so, and it's something that moving forward we'll probably keep in mind as we look for future housing opportunities.
Okay, because one thing I do want to say is that from the point of view of CLV and University Pines, we got an email a few days ago, and they were kind of going outlining that they don't receive federal or state funding, that they rely on their funding from monthly installments. The email, it was pretty vague and it didn't really answer any questions. It was just kind of there saying where they get their funding from. So I don't know if anything will necessarily happen by the looks of that email, but I don't know if I should send a recommendation or if that's just warranting just a conversation with.
As the housing rep, one of the housing reps, a special one for UPines, I think I don't see anything inappropriate with reaching out to the vice president and just explaining who you are, your position, and seeing if you can get an update on the process.
Okay.
Even though that the UPines is a third party, UPines is correct that they do get their funding from rent and those payments, because the federal and state loans and scholarships are given directly to the student, and then the student is supposed to use that to make those payments. And so I understand where they're coming from, but this is a unique situation. In us, the university is no different. It's we rely on room and board charges, and sometimes you've got to make a sacrifice that's in the best interest of the individuals. And so I know the university is working on that, and they're going to do everything we can to support our students. And so I think that's there's nothing wrong with reaching out and asking for an update, but I'm hoping by the end of this week there'll be some sort of news.
Okay. One thing I do want to say is some good news that I did hear is that they are extending payments for this month's lease or for this month's rent. So that was something nice that they did do. I don't know if that's going to also carry over for May as well, but I guess that negotiations are still going on about that. So that's some good news I did want to share. And that's all I have.
No, that's awesome. That's great work, Senator Roberts. Thank you. And last, Senator Ramirez.
Okay, I'm hoping y'all can hear me. Okay. So yesterday I was like sort of finding out if anything was happening with UPines because of the emails we were getting in terms of them saying like we're being like not funded by the federal government but by the students. And there was a news report that went out yesterday, and I happened to catch it 3 hours after it was published, and it was just basically about how we're having to pay for rent, or we have to do a cancellation fee. And I understand why they did it for UPines, not the school, because obviously UPines is a third party. So that's going around, which is great, you know. But I haven't really been to UPines in almost 2 weeks, but hopefully I'm going back soon. So hopefully I can see like exactly what's happening there. I know that my roommates are moving out right now, and they were saying it was like a ghost town on Sunday. So hopefully that means that a lot of people are not going to spread like any COVID if they're going separately. And then this is also like something that I've heard just in housing in general. Like some people have been saying that they've been hearing a rumor that like every other housing facility is having to move their residents to Liberty Landing, supposedly, because they want to like make sure all the RAs are in one place. That's a rumor that's been going around, and I'm just like kind of opposing that, because if they don't want groups of like 10 plus people, they shouldn't have everyone move over. But I don't know, it could just be a rumor, but that's been spreading around like from friends that I have that are still on campus. They're like, I have to move over to Liberty and then I have to move out again. So that's all I have.
I think Senator Ball. I think he's saying Senator Foot, if he doesn't cover that, what you're about to say, you.
Yeah. JT might have a little bit more since he's over at Liberty right now. But I don't really see them doing that since there's only a month left in the semester. I could be wrong. And then just for reaching out to have questions about University Pines, just with the administration, I would keep emailing them about the fact that you guys are you have questions about the fact that you're basically being asked to leave, but also being asked to pay to leave. So I do know that they listen and they forward that on to corporate. So just kind of keep reaching out on that. I don't want to like overstep my bounds as like an RA, but I would keep reaching out with those. I know it'll help.
Yes. Okay.
So I am an RA at Liberty Landing. However, I'm immunocompromised because I have Crohn's disease. So I have not gone back since spring break to be an RA, but I do participate in the meetings that we have. So I'm mostly updated, and I am going to ask some questions, especially regards to Rhett's question. I'm going to pass that up the chain from my end also. As far as I know, I haven't checked the group me today, but I haven't heard of a bunch of people moving in. I know that as far as I know, we need to just get everybody out as soon as possible so we can deep clean every single room. And so trying to do that in a specific order, at least at my facility, they have a specific plan so that, you know, one person per apartment building goes in at a time, so you don't have roommates going in and moving their stuff out at the same time. And it's getting messy because some people are concerned about stay-at-home orders and other things limiting them from showing up at the, you know, designated 4 hours for them to move out of their apartment. And that's being handled on a case-by-case basis, and it's starting to get very I don't want to call it messy, but definitely complicated from the RA and RC perspective. But I know that they're desperately trying to work on it as fast as they can. So emailing whoever is the RCA housing facility, you have those kinds of questions, I'm sure they'll be able to answer it. But I haven't heard of anybody being moved more than just yourself moving out. I don't know if Senator Long has anything else to say on that, because I think she is on campus.
I'm the one RA in here that is on campus. They probably I know they're discussing a lot about consolidating their RAs, because if you only have under 50 residents in a whole facility, each RA is supposed to have only like 48 residents normally. So that's like one RA's job is kind of what they're thinking. But nothing's like, it's just like something they're trying to figure out. I don't see them trying to consolidate residents into one building. I see them cutting down on staff per facility. But if I hear anything different come up, I'll make sure to let y'all know.
And the only other thing I have to say is that normally when we're doing summer housing, we do consolidate everyone that's currently living on campus to a specific few buildings at Liberty Landing, so that the rest of all of housing can be cleaned and, you know, inspected and held for swoop camp and stuff like that. So everyone that is staying for the summer after normal move outs happen, usually, you know, this is probably going to change, but normally like right at the end of April, May, everyone moves out, and then the people that are moving then move to Liberty Landing. So if that's possibly what's being, I just wanted to throw that in there. I'm not sure. I haven't heard a single thing about summer yet, so I'm not sure if that's changed. I'm sure there's going to be something special about it, because they have to deep clean every single room straight from Ginny. So we will see how that goes.
Awesome. And Senator Ramirez, do you have anything else?
No, I think that was really it for right now. So.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. No, that was really good. It's good to hear that you guys, and I don't mean to say it's good to hear that we have problems, but it's good to realize that the issues that we do have that you guys are picking up on, and that makes the work that we're doing really good, and it makes it worthwhile to speak about it. And whenever we know that there's going to be something else that's going on, something else we can work on. So moving on to old business, does anybody else have anything to add for old news? Yeah, Parliamentarian Ray, you're not unmuted, sir.
Sorry. If we were going to make motions to make an action, would that need to become up in old business if it was something that's already been talked about, or if, would I need to bring it up in new business?
Yeah, either is fine.
Okay, well, it's something good to go ahead and work on. So what I'm going to do is I've kind of already pulled up an option. I'm going to post it in the chat real quick. If everybody wants to read it, you can do that, or I'm just going to call it out real quick. So just put it in there. I just put it in there for reference so that as we're talking about it. So considering the extremely low response and unsuccessful results of the SGA document survey, I would like to make a motion to quickly discuss three things. One being reopening the survey, reconsidering the time that it is sent out and when it goes out, and then the third is to add a question for students who vote no as to why they voted no so that we can make improvements. So if somebody would second that motion, they'd be more.
Okay, so it was motion and seconded to open the discussion to talk about reopening the survey for the Constitution vote, reconsidering the time the survey is sent out and the length of the survey, and then to also discussion of adding a question at the end to vote whether or not or why they voted no to the survey. So Parliamentarian Ray, you have the floor.
Okay, so you've already heard what I have to say. So I see Jennifer Stabenow has her hand raised. So if you want to go ahead and say what you got.
Yeah, so Casey, the day that the survey closed, tweeted out reminding everybody to take the survey. And less than 2 hours after that tweet, I finally saw it because I was doing classwork. And I texted my boyfriend and his sister and a couple of my other friends to go and take the survey, and it had already closed. So I know that there were a lot of people that did want to vote. When I, messaged them about it, they expressed interest in voting, but it was already closed. And I feel like it wasn't open as long as the rest of our surveys were. And if we were to reopen it, maybe to post something at the beginning when we send it out to let everybody know about it, not just when it's about to close.
Excellent. Yeah, so we have kind of it's kind of odd, and it's something I would like us to change when we have the opportunity, but for now it's going to continue until we have rules passed. But the time when we send out surveys is midnight, and I think that encourages a lot of people not to vote. They plan to wait till the next morning, so I miss them a lot of times. I don't realize them, so that was.
Yeah, I think we keep it open for a little while, but yeah, I think sending them out at midnight, most people are not going to get the notification, because that's something else is that I get the notification, but certainly if I got an email at midnight, I'm not usually on my phone to see that.
So let me get the first one. To reopen the survey to allow more students input. If we reopen it, there'd be two options. We could just reopen it on its own as a separate thing, or we could just throw it in and loop it in with the senator elections. Does anybody have input on doing that?
We've added surveys to senator elections before. I don't see a problem with that. I know we don't get like a phenomenal turnout for those, but we do get more of a turnout than we do for our typical surveys.
Okay, so when I make my motion, I'll make my motion to add it to that one. Let's hear what Josh Neese has to say to make sure, unless he has a suggestion.
There's a problem with that. So part of the Constitution changes impact the upcoming senator election. So this has to be resolved as quickly as possible, because we can't open up the senator registration because the Constitution restructures.
Okay. So we'll open it as its own survey.
If you add it to the senator, then you're moving forward with the old documents as is, and then we're going to get put into a dilemma if it's passed, because then what do you do with the people or the students who have got a position? And
Okay. So seems like that's the solution right there.
The other comment is it was set up like a traditional election, not a survey. So elections are typically, we send it out at midnight. And the reason why we do it at midnight is because it's one of the first emails that students will see when they open up their email the following morning. And so historically when it worked, it was set up the same normal election time, so a little over 40 hours. So it was sent out Monday or midnight on Thursday, and it closed Friday at 4 p.m. And so, but regardless, what I told Robert was that because that's the only thing, I didn't see any problems with treating it like a survey and where we can open it up. Completely.
Okay, so it looks like we'll have to vote whether we decide to open it, but when we do open it, we've answered question one. Reconsidering the time and the length of the survey. So do we want to reconsider the time it's sent out and then its length? Any suggestions there?
I don't see any harm in adding an additional 24 hours just to ensure that people who see it can make sure that they vote. So maybe opening it, well, I'm not sure when we would open it, because if we opened it tomorrow or tonight at midnight, that it would run beyond 4 p.m. on Friday. So
I don't mind setting it up in the morning and having it run from Thursday to Monday at noon. And then that way Robert has time to review it Monday and Tuesday. And then that way it gives those who are interested to run for Senate time to apply next week. And then that gives individuals a week, 2 weeks to campaign senator positions if they've done a candidacy meeting, which is a separate problem I'll talk about in a little bit.
Okay, so you said Thursday. When would you talk about opening?
Based on my schedule, I think I could have it up Thursday at midnight, or not midnight, noon. And so do Thursday to noon to Monday to noon. And that's a lot of days. And then I can also set it up to where if y'all move forward with the same server, the people who have, then that's a quick fix for me to go in and just schedule reminders, and it will automatically send out an email to those who have not voted to revote. And then I can set another reminder to go out Sunday at noon to give them another 24 hours. And so hopefully that would generate the votes you need to pass it, because you are pretty close. But even though that you are close, I think it needs to be a significant number given the changes that you are doing. Because when we go take this to Dr. Tidwell, if he sees that only 50 people voted on this, I don't think he might not take it as seriously. But if 300 to 400 students have voted on it, that is a good representation of the change. And remember, because it's a constitution change, you have to have 2/3 approving it.
Okay, so keep in mind, if anybody has anything to interrupt, just raise your hand on the little button. I see JT's raising his hand, so let me call on him.
I was just curious, would we also be sending out that reminder to revote for the people that voted no and not just the people that didn't vote at all, or would it just be the people that didn't vote?
No, it'd just be the people that didn't vote. The people that already have voted, their votes still will count.
Okay.
So then third thing, and this may be another question for Josh, is it possible to add another question that says for the students that do vote no, so that we can improve the rules. Does anybody have a suggestion there?
Possible, except those who will not be able to go back and add that comment. So moving forward, only new participants voting will be able to answer that, but it is possible.
What is the likelihood that someone would actually take the time and write out why? Like, I don't know like what the survey analytics look like before. If they're going to be more willing to, if they do say no, that they're going to explain in detail why they would say so.
Correct. I think I agree. As of right now, we have no clue why they voted no.
Like, make it an option rather than, I don't know if you're going to make
documents, making it available from Thursday at noon until Monday. Josh?
Yeah, so it was motioned and seconded to vote to reopen the document voting from Thursday at noon to Monday at noon, which for dates April 2nd to April 5th, I believe. No, April 6th at noon. So all those in favor of reopening it on those days, please say aye.
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 Or raise your hand via emote. Okay, so those opposed, say nay. Or in those who abstain. Okay, so that passes.
Can I go ahead and make the next one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then considering that, I would like to make another motion that we add a final question for students who vote no to discover whether we can improve rules. That question being an optional question that they can choose to answer or not.
Second.
Sorry, guys, I'm ready. So it was motion seconded to add a final question for students who voted no on the Constitution changes and listed as an optional chain or optional question. So all those in favor of adding this final question, please say aye.
Aye.
Please keep your hand raised.
Aye.
Or if you cannot. Okay. So those opposed, please say nay. And anybody who abstains. Okay. So that passes as well. So let the vote now be changed to add a final question, which is optional for those who vote no.
So making sure that Josh Neves heard all that, I think we should be good to go. I appreciate you guys. All right,
Awesome.
continuing on.
So does anybody have anything to add to old business? Okay, moving on to new business. Does anybody have anything to add to new business? Okay. Yeah, Parliamentary.
So I would say I had mentioned before we had once discussed running a survey. I wondered if this option of running a survey mid-semester like this would be something that we could at least highlight and just indicate that there's some struggles in certain classes, or highlight that there are some professors doing very well, and maybe be able to find out where we could put our attention. I don't know if that's something we could take an option to write up and suggest to whoever would do that. I don't know if that's something anybody would want to consider. No motion or anything made, just mention it for discussion.
Point of discussion,
Yeah,
now that would be something I'd be, sorry. Let me just type it, hold on.
Wait, so sorry, Secretary Jennings, you're saying you'd be glad to write up a survey of some kind?
So you'd be writing up an SGA survey rather than, I was more thinking that we would suggest to administration to do that survey. Yeah, we're still discussing, I'm just either one. That was just what I had in my mind. So you had thought of a different option there.
We want that survey to happen. I think that it would be more effective for us to just take it on and present the results, especially with most of the things that I do being event-centered. There's not a ton that I'm doing right now, and that would be a good use of our time, because not only is this good information, it's also sort of once-in-a-lifetime information. We're not going to have a situation where students are dealing with these same problems again for a long time, so knowing how we can deal with them more effectively would be really good for future potential emergency situations.
The only question about that is that would require us to be the ones taking actions at that point. So when we resolve that there is a problem here or there and that these places are doing great, we would be the ones working on resolving that. And that's still kind of, I think we already kind of know where some of those problems are. So how would we transition from finding that out to actually working? There you go. Okay, good idea. Casey said in the comments, I think we should directly endorse the results to admin. How would we resolve something like that in terms of a survey? Would we be asking for department specific, professor specific questions? Or rather course specific?
I think it could be a thing of asking, for each respondent to say what department they're in, what classes maybe that they're taking, and then like an open comment box on, maybe we could have some general overall questions like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your professor doing on this and this other aspect, and then an open comment box where they can get a little bit more specific about a specific issue, and maybe caution them against calling out professors or being particularly vindictive in their comments, since we will be sending it to admin. But I would probably stress that it will be an anonymous survey, because we want students to feel free to speak their mind without fear of retribution, but they still shouldn't be, calling their professor crude names.
Of course.
Just because it's anonymous.
Of course. Really, the purpose of this is just to highlight and solve the problems, not so much point a finger.
Right, exactly. Which I think, if we ask them, what's your major and what department are you taking classes in, and then give them that open comment box, they can say it's specifically like Psych 4382 or Psych 3306, and that way we're not, calling up Dr. Hickey at the psych department saying, hey, all of your professors are doing this, or your professors are doing this, and we don't know which one. Because I think if we get too vague and not specific, then how is admin going to be able to solve the problem if they don't know where the problem is?
Yeah, and obviously I mean, from my side, I'm thinking of it as problems and situations, but I also have the same thought that I've heard quite a few good things from you, and I've had professors that are doing fantastic as well. So this may be an option to us for us to say, hey, look how good we are actually doing at this.
Exactly.
Our transition
I think
is really
that,
fantastic.
yeah. So maybe we do like a little set of, scale of 1 to 10. How's your professor doing on communication? How's your professor doing on updating Canvas? That way we kind of have like a general idea of how all of their professors are doing.
Yeah.
And then let them get more specific if they want to highlight something good that a teacher is doing as well. I think that would be really beneficial information for all of us and for admin, both to commend the teachers that are doing well and to deal with issues that are not being handled appropriately.
Does anybody feel strongly negative towards this idea?
I don't.
David?
I just wanted to tack on because I think it's a good idea, but I also think it would be beneficial to have a question that addresses whether the lecture video uploads versus like live Zoom class.
Yeah,
whether those are effective or not. Because I've had classes where like those videos are fine for the type of material being taught. And I've also had classes where the live Zoom, that worked well too, but I've also had classes that should be Zoom that have just been those lecture uploads where it's not really translating the course material. So adding something in there that says, do you think that it's effective? Just having those uploads versus having the Zoom might be a good statistic to have, just so those professors know that students aren't really getting it.
Okay, so do we want to, since I brought this up, if somebody else wants to make the motion, then I feel that would be more comfortable.
Motion to write a survey asking students about how classes are going this semester.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay, so it was a motion seconded to write a survey for the student body to ask how students' classes are going this semester. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 With the raise of your hand. Yeah. Okay. So those opposed and those who abstain. Okay, so that passes. So that's awesome, guys. I think that's a really great idea. I want to say that Secretary Jennings wrote in the comments, communications committee will tackle that. I think that is important. Also, I like, because you're the one who brought it up, Parliamentarian Ray, if you can be there, because you know a lot about a lot of that writing, and you can help and help and be a facilitator of that conversation as well. Not that I have any doubts of Secretary Jennings being able to do that, but I think any of you guys who could be present at that meeting would really help. I think that a lot of the discussion you guys were having is good. It stinks that it has to be limited by us discussing in this format, or not even this Zoom format, but just meeting as a GA. Limits the conversation we can have. So I think if you guys are really passionate about that, which it seems like a lot of you guys have a lot of insightful ideas, I think that's the best place to go and speak about those. So that's awesome. Does anybody have anything else to add to new business? So seeing none, I guess we'll move on to Master Professor Dr. Astronaut Master Jedi Neves from the SIGIC order.
All right, so hopefully you can see my background. Great background. Got Star Wars. So real quick, y'all addressed the document situation. The only other thing is I was a little late yesterday to the candidacy meeting, but no one participated yet Monday, Tuesday, or today's candidacy meeting. And so that is a problem if you are going to rerun as a senator. And so after we get these document situation handled, I may throw together a last minute senator meeting at the end of SGA next week or later next week, depending on my schedule. But remember, you cannot campaign unless you have done a candidacy meeting. And so unless you are hoping that all the positions are uncontested, then that's one thing. But I would encourage that you try to attend a candidacy meeting, so that way you can campaign and get the word out there about student government. Josh says, how does one become a senator in the case where they do not become an officer? So we're going back. So the documents, the current documents do cover that. So all the officers, candidates that did a candidacy meeting, you do not have to do another one. Your candidacy meeting does roll over, in my opinion. And so when the ballot becomes open for a senator position, you do also have to fill that out though. So if you're running for an officer position, you also need to apply to be a senator. You need to list everything that you're eligible for. And so we're going back to the old school days several years ago. So if you don't get an officer position, then you are still, you can still accept a senator position. Or let's say things don't pan out the way you like, you did get an officer position, but you know what, maybe my schedule, I might need to take a step back and because of my schedule and do a senator position. And so that's a good backup plan to have for those who are running for an officer. But for all the others who are not running for an officer position, which is a majority of the Senate, you've got to reapply. It's not automatic. And so I want to stress that you need to do the candidacy meeting. Other than that, I think y'all have touched on all the other points. I don't have, thank you, Hannah, for the shout out on the Kahoot. The team has done the student engagement team has done a great job of trying to get students to stay engaged, have fun. If you didn't know that, if you win a prize or if you place in the top 3 in the Kahoot, we are going to mail you your prize. And it will be, I think, last I heard, it will be UT Tyler branded prizes. And so we've got a great deal in place and help to make that possible. So definitely take advantage of it. If there is themes you would like to see, let us know. We'll be happy to set that up. We're also exploring other event opportunities. There's another program called GimKit. It's very similar to Kahoot, except as you get answers right, you get points. And then you get to use your points to buy perks. And your perks can be used to sabotage your friends. And so it's very competitive and it makes it more fun. So we're looking at different ways to get students to have fun with one another, even though it's all virtual. There's also some other live streaming going on. Duela and the Office of Campus Activities yesterday did a cooking, an event to show students how to do some basic meals, because believe it or not, college students do not know how to cook. And so that was a cool opportunity we had. As of this morning, there was about 25 people that have watched that video. And so we're looking at doing more cooking events. So if there's something that you would want to learn how to make, let Duela know and should be happy to set that up. There was a comment made about SWOOP camp. Although it wasn't asked specifically, but as of right now, until the university makes a decision regarding summer activities, we are still full steam ahead on SWOOP camp and orientation. In the event that this situation impacts our summer programming, we do have a backup plan in place for camp. But hopefully we don't have to get to that point. So we're really hoping that we can move forward with the original plan of having 2 camps this summer. And then if not, we'll have to go down to a hybrid camp of some sort. Are there any questions for me or the student engagement area? Okay, keep up the good work, y'all. if y'all experience that, Zoom bomb, some of y'all that got to see that before the meeting started, really encourage your professors to make sure that the Zooms provide that advice on how to handle that situation. The easiest solution is to make sure that the meeting's locked down, passwords in place. And I believe as of this morning, Zoom has rolled out a waiting room. And so that is also another good option where waiting rooms can be used, and you can only allow people in that into an actual meeting. So hopefully I didn't think that would happen to us, but so it's kind of crazy to see that firsthand. So kudos to all the officers for handling that swiftly and for setting up. I have reported it to Scott Dillingham, and they are going to look at that meeting ID and report that officially. So hopefully they'll be able to trace that back. I know that the police authorities were following the instructions that were provided by the police authorities to report those types of situations. So keep up the good work.
Awesome. So thank you, Master Jedi. So moving on, does anybody have any quick announcements? I have one announcement to make. The presence of snakes in Zoom meetings does increase my ability to laugh and kind of, the smiles you have in the middle of your class where you try not to look like you're smiling, but your professor sees it. I got about 5 of those. And thank you to Senator Reed for his slippery little snake that he's
Seconded.
got in his hand. Seconded. But does anybody have any announcements to make? I don't know if Senator Stabenow is trying to say something.
No, my dog made a noise.
Oh, silly dog. So we got all the animals here. Somebody bring
Yeah.
a really exotic animal next time.
I have a fish.
'Cause
Does
you-
that count?
I'll bring my pet rock.
Yeah, Rocky.
I think Advisor Neves might have had a Wookiee.
Yeah, punch it, Chewie.
Okay, so no announcements. Okay, awesome. So I guess I could entertain a motion for adjournment, but I do have one thing before that moves forward. I just want to say, for one, thank you guys because this is awesome. And second, Secretary Jennings, don't worry about if your internet's not gonna work for you right now. Don't worry about that. Just whenever you take account for everyone who's here, just put a little emoji thumb up because those are cool anyways. So I guess we're ready. Oh, oh, look at her.
Motion
Y'all are
to
good.
adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Anybody?
No one wants to leave.
Seconded.
It was motion and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Awesome. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.